You are warmly welcome to this year's 5th edition of the AFRODAD Media Initiative, covering the theme, Media's Role in Advancing Africa's Position on Reparative Justice. Over the next 2.5 days, and many thanks to our hosts, the African Forum and Network on Debt and Development, in partnership with the African Monitor, Institute of Economic Justice, and Stop the Bleeding campaign. If there's anyone partnering with us that I haven't mentioned, the protocol is also observed. The 2025 African Union theme on which this program is being leveraged on demands for justice for Africans of African descent who have struggled through various forms of injustice, notably the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, economic exploitation, as well as political interference, among other forms of injustice. Through this program, you will be capacitated to link reparations to global development processes, to prioritize in-depth reporting that advances Africa's position on reparative justice. I believe this is in line with we being the decision makers on what needs to be fit for purpose for us, as opposed to allowing other continents to decide what we need to do. You would agree with me, what is good for Asia, Europe, North America, or South America is not necessarily fit for purpose for Africa. So things like public debt, related issues including taxation, trade, labor, climate finance, and legal elements of debt, among others. I was reading something over the weekend about an interview that was held between Margaret Thatcher, a former Prime Minister of the UK, and a journalist, where the journalist was asking Margaret Thatcher of her opinion regarding resources and being rich across the world. And what she said was very profound. She said, if resources determine how rich a country is, countries like Russia, the DRC, and Angola would have been the richest countries in the world. However, if you look at the world today, countries like Japan, which is full of volcanoes, and Switzerland, which is full of mountains, and Singapore, which is just an island city, are the ones dictating the pace of the direction of prosperity in the world. And she went further and said, it all boils down to leadership. How do we as journalists or the media harness our skills to influence leadership in the right direction? Because if leadership gets it right, the right paradigms or processes will be put in place in the country to influence economic growth in the right direction. Some countries have 30% unemployment, 40% unemployment, and that sort of thing. Unemployment in itself is a resource. Not until you harness that resource, you will never be able to extract the value out of it to drive the economy forward. All you then believe in is money falling from the skies, and we all know money doesn't fall from the skies. So leadership is a critical issue in this focus. In terms of challenges, AFRODAD has tried and is still striving to assist the media in Africa specifically to understand complex debt information and processes, also assisting in the struggle to access information for well-grounded reporting on debt and related issues. It's also assisting to enhance the hitherto limitations to humanizing technical information in a way that makes sense and is appealing to the audience. And over and above this, even those of you who have sufficient capacity to deal with the issues you face in your countries, there are also the hurdles to freely report on sensitive issues linked to transparency, accountability, and governance, including during election processes, and which play a crucial role in shaping and democratizing the debt discourse. You will quite agree with me, some of our countries are so notorious that when, as a journalist, you try to bring some of these things into the picture, the government machinery goes into your past to dig debt around you, to silence you. Sometimes they just abduct you and nobody finds you. As a background, Africa is facing one of its worst sovereign debt crises that threatens to reverse years of development gains and historical debt relief efforts from the African debt risk map. Countries like Sudan, Somalia, Somaliland, Ghana, Sao Tome and Principe, Congo Republic, Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, Cameroon, Angola, Central African Republic, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Chad, Eritrea, Djibouti, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Tunisia, and Kenya are struggling from a heavy debt burden. Some countries have even pushed to implement harsh policies and budget cuts, from social investment to loan repayments, leading to unrest as countries are forced into positions of implementing deeply unfair and unpopular policies, sometimes leading to civil unrest, as witnessed in Kenya and in Nigeria recently. That's in 2024. Back home here, South Africa, we know our own issues. VAT going up by a certain percentage, and the interest rates being held as it is by the Reserve Bank, just to watch how the Americans also play their cards on the strength of the dollar and that sort of thing. Public debt, while an essential component of modern fiscal policy worldwide, presents unique complexities within African economies. Without going too much into politics, what you need to understand is that when you borrow dollars from the IMF or anywhere into Africa, you are paying the interest on the dollar, and then you are also paying that imaginary amount whenever the dollar strengthens. Bear in mind, you are using your local currency to do what you have to do. So there's always that yawning gap. So for example, let me just ask a hypothetical question. Among the South Africans here, how much is a 2-liter Coke currently? 22 rand. Okay. When you go to the US currently, it's around $1 or less. $1 is around 18 point something, but then we are selling it 22. So the difference between the 18 and the 22 is that artificial amount you always have to pay whenever you are paying your interest on top of the interest. That is how the situation is. I mean, fortunately, we've had something called BRICS, where the members are saying they'll trade in their local currency. So that element of the differential between 18 and 23 is no more going to be there. But guess what? With Donald Trump becoming the president, what he's saying is anybody who trades in their local currency is going to receive a 25% tariff on any transaction they do with the US. As Africans, how do we move away from this with a single voice, without some of our leaders crawling to the US to align with the US? These are issues we need to be thinking about. Public debt, while an essential component of modern fiscal policy worldwide, presents unique complexities within African economies. Its genesis is intimately tied to the colonial legacy by European powers, which has contributed to the accumulation of odious debt and the transfer of oppressive debt burdens to independent African nations, constricting their fiscal spaces. We all know the story of Niger and France, and how much France was paying for uranium. And ever since the Nigerians kicked out the French, we know what is happening in their economy. Same for Burkina Faso, same for Mali. I don't know whether you've been seeing in the media, but then we keep seeing, for example, Captain Traoré moving the country forward, coming up with all these social interventions and that sort of thing. Is anybody here from Burkina Faso? Yes, I'm sure you can attest to what I just said. And is anybody here from Mali? Is anybody here from Niger? Anyway, we have someone from Burkina Faso who has attested to what I've just said. And that is the way we need to move Africa forward. Africa for Africa, using African solutions. The exploitative practices and economic control of colonial powers during the colonial era resulted in the extraction of resources and the imposition of economic structures that favored colonizers. Upon achieving independence, African nations inherited the burdensome debts incurred by the colonial powers, perpetuating economic dependency and hindering development. The reparations agenda in the 2025 African Union theme aims to address historical injustices while tackling contemporary issues like systemic racism, economic exclusion, and Africa's marginalization in global decision-making. In the area of systemic racism, we as Africans need to get it right, in the sense that charity begins from home. The same way we talk of racism, usually black, white, yellow, we still have the other form of racism, which is tribalism. I originally come from Ghana. And in Ghana, people in the north are seen to be inferior to the people in the south. So how, for example, do we go around this to ensure that we have a melting pot? It's not just about black and white. It's more about in our homes, how do we handle it? Even in the family unit, how do we live our lives to ensure that we do not make some people in the family feel discriminated against because they didn't go to school, because they can't speak English, because they don't bring money to the house every now and then? How do we go about it? We need to set the tone right from our homes. AFRODAD, through AFROMedI and its partners, has been working with the media to set public debt and linked issues on the agenda as a priority. This has also played a key role in democratizing the debt discourse that's giving citizens the power to influence debt policy through electoral choices. Moreover, the Stop the Bleeding campaign and various partners at national, continental, and global levels have been advancing the movement for debt justice with the motto of positioning Africa as a rule maker and not a rule taker anymore. The role of the media in this campaign is crucial, as you are all empowered to set the agenda that works for the people of the continent. Let me repeat it again. The role of the media in this campaign is crucial, as you are empowered to set the agenda that works for the people of the continent. So, the rationale around all that we've spoken about, what Howard spoke about and what I've spoken about so far, is that the media plays a crucial role in shaping public discourse. That's influencing policy decisions and bringing attention to socio-economic issues. Therefore, empowering journalists to set an agenda that aims at ensuring accountability and keeping people informed on key processes remains crucial. I hope you agree with me. It is important to engage journalists in this process to ensure citizens are informed and engaged. In a nutshell, AFROMedI will offer increased capacity to report on debt reparative justice through humanizing the issues, focusing on data-driven reporting, offering historical context of injustice, and proffering policy solutions from interviews with technical persons in the civil society space. AFROMedI V will strategically link the AU's theme to current global processes and campaigns such as financing for development, South Africa's presidency of the G20. I think on the 21st of February, the foreign ministers aspect of the G20 was held here in South Africa. And you can imagine the nonsense around the state secretary in the US deciding not to come. It's one of the ways of twisting the arm of Africa, and we always need to stand our ground, never to yield. The Stop the Bleeding campaign, the feminist debt justice, etc. This year presents Africa and journalists from the continent with an opportune moment to highlight these injustices and advance reparative justice within several key processes to reverse the course of historical injustice. In terms of objectives, the key objectives of this year's program includes empowering all of you to link reparations to global development processes, thus guiding and influencing your reporting. Secondly, raise awareness on the need to reform global financial institutions and their operating models. My background is in financial services, and I can tell you for a fact that financial services all over the world is skewed towards the interests of the Western world. How do we rejig this to solve African solutions? Yes, people talk of risks in Africa, but you need to understand the risk practically to mitigate it. For example, credit rating agencies are all westernized. How do we put into place a credit rating agency that has an African DNA? There are so many ways of doing it. For example, everybody has a mobile phone. Even those of our brothers and sisters in the rural areas do buy recharge cards. So the behavior of the recharging of the phone can easily be used to replicate credit scoring to show how creditworthy you are and determine the capacity of funds that you can take at any point in time to even start your small spaza shop or even have the little farm out there and then when you pay and all that. The next is to encourage and guide you to strategically report on key movements and moments, including elections in your various countries in 2025 and beyond. And then last but not least, offer a platform for continuous engagement beyond this particular program. As an outcome, whenever you put something into a system, there's a process and then there's an output. So what we are doing, meeting this morning, is an input. The process is the engagement we are going to have over the course of the next 2.5 days. And the output, which we expect to be the case, is increased reporting on debt and other socio-economic issues, including advancing reparative justice and propositions on how to reform the global financing system to favor Africa. It needs to be deliberate. Until we do it, we'll just be talking like parrots. Secondly, debt prioritization in election debates, manifestos, and interviews in 2025 elections and beyond in participants' countries. So you need to consciously influence the discussion around how debt levels will be brought to manageable regions, so that countries do not fall into that trap where their economies are put on the verge of going bust, as we saw in Sri Lanka some time back ago. Last but not the least, we are looking at having an increased membership of the media DNA. More people should be entering into this space to ensure that we have a louder mouth to be pushing the agenda for our leaders to become too uncomfortable and yield to doing what is right, to take Africa out of its current situation of being rule takers instead of being the determinants of the rules for Africa. This year, we have 45 journalists participating from 31 countries. It is an expectation that the number of countries will grow in subsequent years to cover all the 54 African countries. Indeed, I'm told this year has the largest number of countries so far. So clap for yourselves for being here. And we hope next year you'd still be at the next AFROMedI, and we are going to have more countries in addition. Thank you so much for listening to me. Enjoy the rest of the program, and let's engage. Thank you.